Invader Zim is a show I never watched as a kid because, well, I grew up with SpongeBob. But around 2001, it was considered a cult classic. You see, around that time, Nicktoons was hitting a peak with Hey Arnold, SpongeBob, and other shows going on at the time. So with so many good shows, some were bound to be left behind, and Zim unfortunately was one of them. So today we're going to be looking back at Invader Zim. It's just an average setup with Zim not being selected for the program for taking over the universe. Basically, last time he committed arson, so they won't let him on. They try to send him off to like a non-existent planet, but he ends up on Earth. With that, he also gets a robot, which his name is Gur, and he's kind of dumb, but low-key the best character of the show. With them having disguises and staying up on Earth. Basically, blending in as a human so he can learn information on the humans and Earth. He starts going to school with a classmate Dib pointing out that he's an alien. And you can already tell where this goes. It's like a Dib versus Zim kind of thing throughout the entire series. But everyone doesn't see Zim as an alien. They see Dib as weird and they don't believe him. And then we have a chase scene out of school with Dib, with Zim arriving home and reporting back to his leaders who thought he would be dead. But that's the first episode. Overall, I would give it a 6 out of 10. It does a decent job introducing the characters. Episode 2. Best Friends. This episode is about Zim making a friend with a guy named Keith after Zim uses him for a day, so it makes it look like he's human. He also uses Keith so it makes it look like he has friends so he doesn't get suspicious. But Zim does my boy dirty by having his eyes taken out, and now he sees a squirrel as his best friend. After Keith wouldn't leave him alone, and he was planning a party for him, overall I thought this episode was alright, 6 out of 10. The other part of this episode is a battle against Zim and Dib. Basically, Zim is in Dib's body and is trying to destroy his brain, so he won't be a threat to him. But Dib's sister beats him and Dib shits him out, and that's the end of the episode. Overall, like a 6 out of 10. This episode is about Zim bringing his robot parents to a parent-teacher night, and they aren't exactly accurate. So basically, Gur puts on different shit while Zim was training them to be humans. The episode ends with them fleeing after the robot parents started acting up and no one notices, but they notice when Dib drops punch. Overall not bad, like a 6.1 out of 10. The other part of this episode is about Zim and Gur getting lost in Detroit, and after Gur forgot to bring the travel chip, and the episode is just them trying to find ways to getting home, like keep being rejected by the bus, Zim going to Mexico, the cops thinking Zim is a bank robber, you know, the normal shit. Overall, it's still like an alright episode, like a 6.5. This episode is about Zim being a germaphobe when he thinks germs can kill aliens. That's really it, 5 out of 10. The other part of this episode is considered the darkest episode of the series, Dark Harvest. People say this is the most disgusting episode of the series, and it involves Zim taking organs from everybody, so when he goes to the nurse he sounds human, because he has organs, and since Zim takes Dib's organ, he's accused of not being human, which is ironic. Overall, 7 out of 10. One of the most notable episodes of the series in my opinion. This episode is about a bunch of crazy people finding Zim's rocket ship after it crashes from a bee, and Zim tries to take it back. Anyways, they find out Zim is an alien and they worship him. Gur finally gets Zim out of there, and then he crashes into an alien convention. Overall, like a 6.5 out of 10. The other part of this episode is about Dib and Zim being at war over water. After Dib finds out Zim can't handle water because it burns him. So Dib starts hitting him with water balloons, and Zim causes a whole flood with a giant water balloon. Above average, like a 6.7 out of 10. Episode 6. This episode is about Zim working a fast food job because he put human slave on his career day pamphlet. And he also has herpes. He has herpes because when the planets align, his herpes start to act up and cause them to become really big. Meanwhile, Dib is with this paranormal guy who is a complete goof, so he's basically just a paranormal guy. Overall, this episode is like alright. It's just like Dib trying to get this paranormal guy to go to Zim. And he also has beef with Count Chocula for some reason. And the episode ends with just Zim getting fired. Overall, like a 6.1. The other part of this episode doesn't even include Zim. He doesn't have much of a role in this episode. It's more so about Dib trying to get his dad to sign a permission slip so he can go to the scientist convention, because his dad is a busy scientist. So he has to go to many obstacles to get past so he can meet his dad. After fighting this monster from the Goonies, he gets a permission slip signed, but he forgot to bring the evidence about Zim. Overall, like a 6.3 out of 10. Episode 7, The Planet Chasers. This episode is basically about aliens that steal planets and destroy them. Zim won't have that because it's his job to take over it. So he takes it back, and that's really the end of it. A 5.9 out of 10. The other part of this episode is about Zim having a pimple that can hypnotize people. He uses it to get information out of Dib into saying what's wrong with his security system. Like a 5.7 out of 10. Episode 8. This episode is about Zim's security system acting faulty, and now Gur is the house. He can basically move around like a transformer. He sees a Taco Bell ad and goes to a Taco Bell to get tacos, which causes more attention, so Zim tries to get him back before they cause too much attention, and that's basically it. 6.8. It's alright. Next episode is about time travel, with Zim time traveling to make sure Dib is weaker and then dies. But doing so makes him stronger and turns him into a transformer. So he basically reverses everything and everything goes back to normal. Overall, like a 7.7 out of 10. This episode is about Zim taking the entire classroom to a wormhole disguised as a field trip. Leading them to a room with a moose which will eat them, and Dibs finds out and tries to get the kids to listen to him, but they don't. He sits on their side so that way they move to your side so that way they can avoid the room with the moose dimension. Zim's plan fails. The other part of this episode is about making a giant hamster from the classroom pet, and he stops it, and that's really it. 7.1 out of 10 in my opinion. Episode 10. This episode is about a couple of babies seeing Zim, and Zim suspects them of being dangerous to their plan. And he's surprisingly right. These are just aliens that look like babies, and they blend in as babies. They are planning to take his ship and leave them here on Earth. By the end, Zim turns them dumb by the help of Gur, so they are basically babies and they act like babies. Overall, a 5.9 out of 10. The other part of this episode is about Dib being captured by Zim, and Dib's sister wants to get him out of there so they can go to Chuck E. Cheese with their dad. And she can only go if Dib is there. So she saves Dib from Zim, and Dib tries to get him back, but he's scared of Chuck E. Cheese, so yeah, he leaves. Overall, like a 7.1 out of 10 for doing something new. Episode 11. This episode is about the school not having enough funds to buy desks, so everyone starts selling chocolates to raise money for it. Zim takes Dib as a challenge for it, and Zim basically just threatens all of them into buying chocolate. Ends up selling $1 million worth of chocolate, and the mystery prize was nothing. I had to do the same thing in school, but difference being this is America, and it's easier to sell chocolate, so I won a Chromebook. Cool. The other part of this episode is about Zim being paranoid, and they have to return a Blockbuster DVD to the store because he thinks the FBI is involved. It's just Blockbuster like just charging late fees, and we all know how that ended for them. Anyways, he goes with this tough drill sergeant, and he has to go through a bunch of obstacles to return the movie because it's after hours, and then he leaves. Overall, like a 7.8 out of 10. This episode is about Dib's DNA turning into baloney after he slapped Zim with some baloney at lunch. And people made fun of him, however Dib affects Zim with the same thing, so they both have it, and they need to find a cure. Long story short, they don't, and then they get taken by dogs. Overall, it's like a 5.9, it was alright. Another part of this episode is a Gaz episode, where she wants this new console called Game Slave. But this fat kid takes the last copy, so she stalks him into giving it up. And then that's really the whole episode, 6.5 out of 10. This is a one episode. So the plot is Zim takes Mars and is planning to use it to destroy the Earth, but Dib finds out and tries to stop Zim. Zim is almost successful, but he goes into an asteroid belt, so Mars is a no-go. Dib was planning on taking the footage of Zim and going on a show, but Gur destroyed it, so yeah, it's void. Then we hear back from the other invaders, and they still see him as a joke. Overall, I like this episode way better than the other ones. 8.9 out of 10. This episode is about Dib's mind. Basically, his mind created a bunch of monsters, which created a dimension in his mind that he goes to like randomly, because he was fucking with his dad's shit. And so, he's in a dimension in his mind, and Zim becomes a part of it once Dib goes over to ask him for help. After they're in the dimension, we find out the monster version of the teacher is the one leading these group of monsters to Dib. And the only exit out of this realm to Earth is through Dib's head. Basically, Dib's head is basically a portal. Zim and Dib get out via Dib's head, and then the monsters are scared off after the teacher monster sees the aftermath of Halloween, so everything is back to normal. Overall, this episode is like a 7.1.
Burger King foot lettuce.
Episode 15. This episode is about Dib going on a paranormal show. This episode kind of mocks those shows with the dramatic reenactments. Gur and Gaz being on there to give their sides of the story, with them only picking Dib because they need a new idea before their show is cancelled and they needed something new and good. Overall, like a 6.7 out of 10. It's something unique. The other part of this episode is about Gaz once again. This episode is about Gaz and Dib's dad showing off a new generator, with Zim using a robot to pose as Dib after he convinces the real Dib that he's from a different dimension where Zim destroyed the entire dimension with like a generator, and Dib gets locked up. Zim uses the robot Dib so it can destroy the generator without causing too much of a stir. But it doesn't go to plan when Gaz finds out, when Gaz beats up the fake Dib. But she takes the robot over the real Dib, so the real Dib's just there getting beaten up by a monkey. Overall, like a 6.5 out of 10. Episode 16. This episode is about Zim being sent to a different planet for training, so he gets more tanks. But he's a bad leader and gets all of his crew killed, so the main guy challenges him to a match, which Zim wins by stealing his power, and he gets his ship, and that's about it. Also, the other invaders made a bet on Zim losing. And some bartender also was forced to bet against his will on Zim, which he won a bunch of money. An 8.1 out of 10 just for the bartender alone. Episode 17. This episode is about Zim getting a death robot by accident because a rogue employee swapped the packages. Because originally the bad robots were supposed to go to Zim, but they accidentally sent the good robots over to Zim instead. They were originally going to send the good robots to another invader, but now her mission's ruined, so yeah. Zim plans on using it to destroy Dib. The only problem with the robot is it only makes the robot invisible, so Zim is very much visible. Dib sees him and he self-destructs, and that's really it. Overall, like a 7 out of 10. I thought the joke of everybody seeing Dib was funny. The other part of this episode is about lice. Basically, the whole school is on lockdown as a result of lice. Besides Zim, because he's basically an alien. This crazy lady puts everybody in different rooms and claims there's a lice queen. Which it turns out she's right, there is a lice queen, and they use them to kill the lice queen. And everybody is free of lice. Overall, like a 6.5 out of 10, it's alright. This episode is about Zim being captured by two idiot aliens who think he's human, and he escapes with Dib, and that's basically it. 5.5 out of 10, it's alright. The other part of this episode is about Dib finding this crazy guy who goes by Chickenfoot, and he first found him on the TV show he watches, and he wants to disprove this guy, but the guy is kind of an idiot. Like, he thinks he's a chicken because he's stuck in the chicken suit. Then he escapes the suit and yada yada yada. Overall, like a 6.1 out of 10. This episode is about Zim giving Gur a new mode where he's mainly focused on the mission, with him gaining knowledge on humans, to the point where he tries to kill Zim because his methods are stupid. He also brought in a random cop, so Zim has replaced his conscience with a squid, which that guy helped him change Gur back to normal. And he goes back into the ocean, but he's still a human, so he's probably drowned. Overall, I like this episode, an 8 out of 10. The other part of this episode is about Dib throwing a muffin at Zim, and Zim convinces him that he's in a new reality where he catches him and becomes a really successful paranormal guy. But once Dib reveals that he threw a muffin at Zim, Zim just flat out just takes him back to the normal reality and then throws a muffin at him just for good sakes. Which I thought that was funny, if being honest. I'll give it a 9 out of 10 if being honest. Episode 19. This episode is about Tak, the girl who joins their class, and she's actually an alien undercover. She wants revenge on Zim because he caused her to like flunk back in Invader school, basically. So she does this by taking over his mission and gets Dib to help him stop her. And they save the Earth, and it also ends on a cliffhanger with Dib finding Tak's ship. So yeah, that's cool. 9 out of 10. The season 1 finale. This episode is about Zim having to deal with this giant ball that's gonna turn into a big explosion. That's going to explode at any moment. And that's really it. Anyways, the explosion goes off and that's really it. 6 out of 10. Moving on to season 2. These episodes range from being made in 2002 to being released in 2006. There's only 7 episodes, so let's dive right in. This episode continues from where we left off with Zim wanting his masters to come to the Earth, and they don't want to, so he controls their ship to go to Earth. Also, Dib has controls to Zim's lab. He attacked the girl who invaded the last season's ship. Dib's trying to stop them from landing on Earth. Also, Zim and Gur have to deal with this brain-sucking parasite, which Gur is preventing them from being, like, in the lab. And there's also this resistance that wants to destroy Zim's masters and take their food. They lose, which Zim's masters switch Zim's controls to their ship. So they basically just crash, but they all escape via escape pods, so it doesn't do much damage. And at the end of the episode, the brain parasite gets out and the masters calls at the wrong possible time, and that's really it. 8 out of 10. This episode is about Dib summoning a monster from the underworld so it can help stop Zim. He pretty much does nothing but eat and get pets. So, yeah. He's supposed to grant someone a wish, which he grants a random guy's wish for ice cream. And then he leaves for another 1,000 years, and that's really it. Overall, like a 5 out of 10. The other part of this episode is about Dib putting a security system in Zim's house so he can find out his plan. And we kind of see his antics from there, like eating waffles and calling the FBI, just to see a kid eating waffles or pretty much nothing happens, with Zim forgetting his plan at the end. Overall, it's like a chill episode. I give it like 6.1 out of 10. This episode is about Dib's ship he took from Tak, which he converted his personality to it. Basically, the ship thinks he's him, and he goes to school. The thing is that Tak is basically Zim's species, so Zim could take over that ship because it's technically his species. And so he converts it to an ally of his, and he uses it to try to kill Dib. But Dib returns it back to its normal form under his conscience, and then the ship starts reflecting on life, and that's how the episode ends. At 6.1 out of 10, it's alright. Episode 4. This episode is about Dib going to the council's office, and he believes Dib when he talks about aliens. Which he doesn't actually. He only does this so that we can get to the bottom of why Dib's acting like this. Then they make a deal with Zim pretending to be aliens. Basically, they lure Zim with the promise of weapons, which Zim appears, and then another set of aliens appear, and they give Zim weapons. The counselor also goes to the other set of aliens and takes the footage of Zim that Dib took, so it's basically a loss for Dib. Overall, like a 7.5 out of 10. The other part of this episode is an election, where Dib gets another guy to go against Zim in the election, but the other guy wins, and gets brainwashed by the school staff. So another Dib loss, a 7.1 out of 10. It's alright. This episode is about Dib giving Gaz a pig curse, so every time she eats something it tastes like pork. So he tries to undo it. Meanwhile, their dad is trying to get rid of it via science, and kinda makes her out to be a freak of nature. Until Dib takes them to a realm of the pig who gave her the curse. And Gaz passes the trial to get rid of it, but Dib doesn't know that. And he asks him to punish him instead, in which he does by making him clean his toilet with his head. This episode is like a 6.1 out of 10. This episode is about Zim being stuck in retail, basically his original job, before he became an invader again. Okay, this is his original job before they let him invade again. And the original boss captures him and forces him to work retail against his will. But he finds a loophole and escapes, and overall a decent episode at 6 out of 10. This episode is the final episode of Invader Zim. We made it, buddy. This episode is about Zim impersonating Santa Claus and to basically convincing the humans to teleport themselves to space, basically their doom. But the Santa suit makes him jolly and it takes over Zim until Dib kills him, and which it frees Zim. And then Zim turns the town against Dib and that's basically it. I really like this episode, like a 9 out of 10. Invader Zim is a good series. There wasn't a downright bad episode for it for me, even the weakest episodes were still somewhat good, which you can't really say for a lot of shows. Being honest, it was cancelled way too early. Towards the end it started getting way better. Invader Zim is a series I covered before. Link is in the description below. Well, years after it was cancelled, Nick made a deal with Netflix to make some original content for them. What came out of this was a new Invader Zim movie, with all the original voice actors returning. So today, let's dive into Invader Zim Enter the Florpus. The plot is about Zim not leaving his home, which causes Div to not leave his home and constantly monitor Zim, and in that time he becomes fat. This was a part of Zim's plan, but he forgot phase 2. He finds out later that the Tallest, who are his masters, were never coming to Earth, so he loses motivation. During this time, Div wants to prove to his dad that he isn't crazy, and he is actually right, which on a side note, I'm glad they explored this. Shoot, it can even create funny moments at times.
I wish just once you'd have my back.
Wishing isn't very scientific, son.
But Dib's dad created a bracelet, which will cause world peace. Dib uses Zim to show his dad aliens are real. Until Zim plays a 40 chess moves and gets everybody to wear the bracelets, which will take them to the line in which the Tallest would explore the planet. But overall, I like the idea of Zim finding out the Tallest didn't give a shit. So he would go this far for something. It's something that he would do. Shit, he even does this at certain points, bringing the Tallest to him in one episode. So Dib and Gaz take ship to the prison in which their dad is being kept. But they find their dad, but it turns out he thinks it's all an hallucination. I don't know how you can be this smart and this incredibly stupid, but it happens. While this is happening, there's a florist that will suck up the earth and kill everybody on it, including Zim, but Zim just writes it off as, oh, his masters will be there before. Which the masters just want to destroy Earth entirely because they don't want to deal with Zim. The way to return the Earth back to where it was before is that there's this mini moose where Dib is chasing Zim, and Dib's dad rescues him and finally has his back for once, which he gets knocked out by this fish guy. Basically, long story short, in the beginning of the film, it was a way to try to fool Dib into thinking that was his dad. But Dib's fake dad was attached to Dib and Gaz, because he's kind of a bit dumb, to be honest, and thinks he's actually Dib and Gaz's dad. So he gives the moose to them, but they enter the forest, in which we get a cool animation switches, until Dib's dad sends them back to how it was before. Oh yeah, Zim's masters go through the Florpus, and which now they're probably dead because they entered. Anyways, everything goes back to normal except for this fish motherfucker still staying with them for some reason, and Dib's dad being in denial thinking it's a hallucination. Zim tries to contact the Tallest, in which obviously they're changing animations and then they die. So yeah, that's the end of the film. Overall, I like this film. The lighting and the animations being amazing, especially towards the beginning and end. It's a good movie, although if you haven't watched Invader Zim, I wouldn't watch it because there's a lot of stuff that would go over your head if you haven't watched it. It would be like a good recommendation for a hardcore Invader Zim fan or has general knowledge of the series entirely. Invader Zim is a series I covered before, but one of the things that I never touched was the comics. You see, with Invader Zim getting cancelled, there was a lot of concepts that didn't make it to the show. Like whole episodes practically being recorded but never animated because of the show getting cancelled. So, we're going to be touching on the comics, and no, I will not be including the mini-stories that come with it. With that being said, let's dive in. So the beginning of the comic is about Dib getting fat and now he's glued to his chair, but it quickly goes into a different plot, with Zim wanting to jump code to something called the Galactic A-Ray. Zim has threatened to kill his kids unless he gives it to him, which no, I'm not joking, that actually happens. But he tells him about a historian he needs to go see. Then you know the usual, Dib gets back into shape. It's just a scene from the movie with Zim watching TV and not doing anything. This is really similar to the last Florbus. Then Zim goes to meet the historian and then Dib goes to attack ship. So what I'm picking up from this is that the comic book stories are not akin to the animated stories. With that being said, Tack Ship, instead of being angry towards Dib, actually lets him cook, which is a change from the show and the movie, but it's a welcome one. It's a nice change of pace. Zim meets the historian and Dib has no real plan to stop Zim. First issue. It does a good job having characters besides Tack being faithful to the show. But maybe it's just me, but it's distracting because I watched the movie first before I ever picked up the comics. Because like they took parts from the comics and put it in the movie, and I don't know, it just kind of bugs me. And the art style looks amazing. This one starts off right where the last one left off. We have Dib going to a tourist attraction to trying to find Zim, and for some reason they have a load of cash to buy a shitload of stuff. Zim gets a jump code from the historian by buying into capitalism. Dib does the same and catches up with Zim. And Dib has no real plan, so he just tackles him. And the right isn't destroy the earth, it's to send Dib's workout tape to everybody while he was fat to everyone in the universe. And I like that detail because that is something Zim would do. He would do some petty shit like that. Like, remember that one episode where he tricked Dib into thinking he made it by catching him, and he just wanted Dib to admit he threw that thing at him? It's a bit anticlimactic, but it's funny. Overall, a good issue. In this issue, Zim finds out about this thing called the Star Donkey. No, not that donkey. To summon the donkey, he needs to construct temples across the city, and which he does by posing as paparazzi.
Hey, good morning, Kanye.
Shut the fuck up.
No, I'm kidding. He goes as an artist. I just want a reason to use that one clip. He disguises the temples as a giant art piece, and people are going along with it to not seem stupid to his vision. Which reminds me of another one. Anyways, Dib goes to stop him and finds out Zim needs the sugar cube to activate the temples, and then Zim finds out and puts him in the artist hater's closet. I guess you can say he was stuck in the closet. Dib fails to take the sugar cube from Zim, in which he uses it, and the Star Donkey kicks Earth into the sun and killing everybody including Zim. This one is about the tallest fucking with Zim after he mistakes garbage they sent him for something super important, and they are entrusting him with it, saying it's a super weapon. By doing painful tasks, he will make it more powerful. And not gonna lie, I really do not like this strip. I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea. I don't know, this just isn't my type of humor. Anyways, it's all his fuck up after Zim sends it back over, and it's not the best. Overall, not the best. It's at least passable, so I'll give it that. With that being said, moving on. This one is focused on Dib and Gaz, and Gaz is a gamer. And this is full of a bunch of gaming references, which is okay, and that's really the whole plot. Lord Vakarot explains that he's not a gamer but is an NPC. You see why I don't like this issue? It ends with Dib beating Gaz in a round and she throws him against the wall. And that's overall it. I will give it a broken marriage out of 10. This one is a skip. This one is just to answer questions for the series like where would Zim get a bank loan from? And why would he even need money? Can't he just steal? But then again, Zim isn't the brightest, so yeah. And how long can Zim last looking for a shoe before the universe implodes? I really don't care for this one, it's okay, that's really it. The main thing carrying this one in my opinion is Dib and Gur. Their interactions are good. Even in bad plots they're still good characters, so that's what carries it for me. Overall it's okay. This one is about Zim landing on a planet and the liquid coming from his ship is causing the planet's rapid evolution. And we just see Zim and Gur trying to escape with these germ looking things worshipping Zim, at which he goes with them. And they're basically begging him to destroy them, in which, damn, that got dark fast. Anyway, Zim kills them and yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall it's a good one. This one focuses on Dib. Apparently, from what I found, this is based on a scrapped episode that never made it to the actual series. It's about evil parents taking over the world, and we got introduced to this girl named Gronya. No, I'm not making a joke. That's her name. I'm tempted to make a joke, but I'm not gonna make it. Anyways, Zim invites the alien space pants, in which I think I have to blur that. But Zim plans on destroying them as soon as they made everyone crippled with no legs. But Dib teams up with the Pants Queen because she mistook him for a leader and defeats Zim, and then Zim uses the button to kill the space pants and everything goes back to normal. Overall, it's okay. This one is about Dib disguising himself as an alien to trick Zim so he can get footage and he can upload it to Reddit, and offers to be an intern. Then Dib starts working for Zim and does a bunch of awful stuff as you expected. But Zim rewards the fake alien Dib with helping him kidnap people. And he decides to kidnap the people who called his video fake. Then Dib gets the video of Zim's lair and no one believes him still. Overall, I like this one. It leaned towards the comedy, which I liked in Zim media, so it's overall good. This one is about a kid bringing a snake to a talent show, winning. So Zim wants to bring this one alien beast from an alien planet to show who's the real winner, because he thinks that they might give him ownership of the planet by bringing this giant beast. Anyways, Dib overhears this and gets trapped to Zim's ship, in which they go to the planet. Zim catches the beast and he brings it to Earth, but people only care about Dib's cat. And that's overall it. Plot is about Zim finding out Dib has an allergic reaction to cats. So Zim creates a robot cat to mess with him, but it doesn't affect him because of fur. So it does nothing to him. So he fakes to be a vet so he can steal people's pets and launch them at Dib. But Dib wins by drinking anti-allergies, and then that's basically it. Overall, it's okay, it's passable, but not really much. There's a future where Zim wins and Dib tries to go back in time to prevent this, and just gets captured, with Zim waiting for 6 months to meet future Zim. Anyways, future Zim thinks Zim is a moron, in which the tallest improve of future Zim than the actual Zim. So Zim gets jealous, so he frees Dib to assist in defeating future Zim. It's overall a good episode. It was nice to see Zim and Dib team up, and that's about it. Moving on. So some random aliens from Earth come to get Zim's syrup he has made, and to get it from him, they threaten to do bad things to Dib, thinking that Zim and Dib are friends. So Zim doesn't really care all that much and watches Dib get tortured. But Dib stole the syrup from Zim's lab earlier on, and he swallows it when he gets abducted by the aliens. And then he digested it and turned into a monster, and he's chasing Zim. And it just ends with it feeling like once the table's turned, it kind of just... It's kind of anticlimactic in a way, where it's like once the table finally turned in Dib's favor, it just ends. This one is about Gaz, with her having to play along with Dib because she gave him a potion that will make him explode if he becomes unhappy, and has to keep him happy until the chemical leaves his body. Overall, it's a cool comic. I like the concept. I wish that they were able to put this to the show. It's good. This one is focused on Miss Bitters, this teacher at Zim's school, with her being late, and the kids talking about her origin, or their speculations of her origin, with Dib calling them every one of them stupid, and not making any sense. Yeah, this one's okay, but it's a nice change of pace. This one is about Dib scaring Zim by wearing a clown mask and reducing him to a mess, and tries to scare Dib back, with him even sending him to space. And there's a reason why he isn't scared, because Dib got his dad to give him a potion, so he isn't scared of anything. Overall, this one's okay. I would say it's enjoyable for the most part. So Dib and Zim have got captured by this alien and agreed to let them go by convincing her that they deserve it more than the other, going back and forth with stories being heroic and stuff like that. And the alien never planned on letting them go. Instead, they actually are a producer using these stories to create a show, only for everybody to hate it, and they send it back anyways. Overall, it's a good one. I like it from a comedy aspect. This one was funny, actually. This one is about Zim being jealous of an alien with the tallest because he gets all the positions and decides to get an easy title so the tallest will respect him. He decides to take over a restaurant called the Burrito King and takes it over from this guy, who comes back learning bean bending. He doesn't even use it on Zim, he just uses the trap that he already had there to begin with. Overall, it's okay. Moving on. This one is about the school's parents doing a career day basically and talking about what they do. Zim wasn't planning on doing it, but his robot parents show up, pretending to be zookeepers. So Zim has a bio oven to create a zoo, and plans on relying on Gur to tell him about Earth animals. Being as you expect, the animals aren't even close to normal animals, and then the law enforcement gets involved and then it gets taken down, with Zim's parent going to jail, with Dib being heckled for blaming the actions of their parents on their kids. Which is funny. I like this one. This one is about Zim binge watching a show, having Zim's latest creation take over the Earth, rethink it, and then rebuilds the Earth and goes to different planets to repair those planets. Overall, it's okay. Moving on. This one is about Zim and everyone else switching bodies. Zim goes into Gaz's body and Gaz goes into Zim's body. Gur goes into Dib's body, stuff like that. This leads to Gaz wanting to take over the Earth, with Gaz betting she can do it faster than Zim, and then Zim gets banished and Gaz takes over. This one is kind of weird, where it's just weird in the fact it's confusing on how this works. They switch characteristics with Zim playing games constantly, because he switched into Gaz's body. But Gaz still plays games even as Zim, so what? This one was just weird and didn't make any sense. This one is about Zim trying to affect the astrosphere with Cheeto dust, and Gur keeps messing up because of a virus. With Brain going into an overall weird phase. Overall, this one is fine, nothing really much. It stops being about Gur slowly after a while. Overall, it's okay, moving on. Issue 23. This is about the virus that makes Gur want to kill Zim, which is similar to an already existing episode. Zim is entering Gur's mind and becomes convinced that Hawk, being an alien Zim works for, and it turns out giving Gur a virus was a trap to lure Zim into his head, and Zim activates the antivirus and sees the message left for him. It led with Zim wanting revenge, but Gur deletes it, and that's overall it. It's an okay one. I like the art style and the colors, it was nice. Zim finds out where he lives in this place called Cyberflox, going there, and it's basically like a black market kind of deal where it's taken over by a corporation, and he disguises himself as a janitor, asking everyone about Verrex. Zim talks to this one guy and a firefight breaks out. This catches the attention of gang leaders who are led by this guy called Gobo, who thinks it was Zim that tried to take over his territory. Zim is led into a trap by them in which he thinks he's a part of Verrex, and then he's abducted by a ship. Zim then confronts Verrex, and his intention was from stopping him from sucking, and that's it. Overall, I thought it was okay. Wasn't fully expecting the gangster element to be in Invader Zim and being honest, but then again it's a comic, so they can get away with a lot more. This one starts with Verrex being an admirer of Zim and feels like he's been downhill ever since he's been tasked with taking over Earth, and he wants to replace him. He calls up Gur to get him, the Voot Runner, to come rescue him. Verrex is already trying to transfer his body into Zim, but Zim gets back into his body and leaves Vertex trapped, and then they return to Earth, and that's it. Overall, I like this one, it was decent. This one is about Gur going to their school, with Gur wearing an awful disguise but people buying it, with Zim and Dib being able to spot him. Dib tried to say he's a robot and then they call him a bully. Dib keeps following him, but it turns out he was just there to visit Zim and to learn more about the humans by being friends with them. But then it turns out Gur didn't have his memory card in, and so they find his memory card, in which was, and the only secrets that they told Gur was like useless drama, so yeah, it makes him delete it, and that's basically it. Overall, it's a nice comic. I kind of wish they played around with this idea in the show, with Gur like going to her school. This one is about Zim finding another alien base under his, and Gur knocks on it, and it's owned by an alien named Zurzai. He took over Earth a century ago, the underground Earth that is, and this is starting to sound like Undertale. Zurzai declares war on Zim with his splitty holes, with Zim returning the favor with his blurred beavers, and that's it. He got Zim whatever he wanted, And that's it. Overall, I think it's okay. It reminds you of that one episode where they have to deal with those 2 aliens. This one is about Zim and Gur traveling, with them fighting a missing research team who mistakes Zim for their commander. And he takes advantage, and they explode this time accelerator thing, which leads to Zim being aged a lot. Overall, it's a decent one. This one is about Dib, and a flavor of soda called Poop Cola. He owes it to Gas to get her some as a dark poop replacement, but Gur buys all of it. After getting into some trouble over it, someone forces him to drink all the flavors, in which he goes on an astral trip to see Zim as the key to stopping this. And that's it. We just hit it with a to be continued, and overall it was okay. This one opens up with Dib trying to join the Poop Watch group, with him bringing him to Zim to get some, in which he takes some from Gur and then takes the gas and doesn't take it to the other people. And overall it's okay, a nice continuation to the other one, nothing really much. This one is about Dib finding this mutant bird and thinking it was Zim, but Zim denies ever making it, and instead Dib decides to investigate a carnival in which he finds this thing called Goop, but it's revealed that the ice cream Dib found there was contaminated by Fat Boy, the ice cream brand. And then they had to destroy it. Dib tells them that he got contaminated by the ice cream because he was close enough to the ice cream. He had to shave his head bald, and then he got hit with hot water, and then he gets fucked up by birds. That was his plan the whole time, with birds. And overall I thought it was okay. This one is about a fitness contest with Zim wanting to win so he could break the president's neck, and he will be rewarded. None of them win, it goes to someone else, and that's really it. Overall it's okay for the most part. This one is about Zim trying to win this fair to take over the world, with Dib trying to beat him, which Gur by accident replaces Zim's project with a creation called Mr. Wiener, and he wins, but it's not really a win. This one's alright for the most part. It's okay, I guess. Zim visits space prison, in which he pays them to imprison people for him. He forgets to pay, so they put him in prison. So he's just stuck there getting beaten. And then he finds this carving underneath his bunk bed telling him he has a plan to escape. And then he thinks about it, and then we get hit with a to be continued. Overall it's okay, not bad. This one's about Zim paying his bill after he attempted to escape, and that's really it. Overall, I find it enjoyable. It's okay for the most part. This one is about Zim exploring candy, and he goes to this factory in which he is captured by kids and is now forced to eat candy flesh. However, Gur eats it, and that's mainly how it ends, with Gur eating all the candy. And this one's okay, nothing more really. This one is about Zim going to Dib's house, claiming to be his brother, and even wears his clothes. But it's revealed to be a simulation and was using Dib as a test subject. And this was a bit better. Reminds you of that one episode where Zim puts him through an actual simulation to make it seem like he won, just to admit he threw paper at him. This one is about the people thinking Gur is dead and not knowing he's a robot, with Zim attempting to make him a new disguise, but Gur dressed up like Dib for a day, in which other kids think the real Dib is an imposter and chase him out. But Gas helps get everyone to think the imposter Dib, aka Gur, is dead, so Gur can go back to the robot form, in which people still think Dib is a zombie now. Overall, it's okay for the most part. This one is about Dib and Gas and Zim being captured on a ship, with all of them escaping without Gur. This one is just about Dib and Zim blaming each other for it, and overall it's just okay in my book. This one is about simple tales that didn't happen, so not canon, it's just random tales. So a universe that's nice all the time, there's a universe that takes place in musical form, kind of like a play, and a universe where Dib is a supervillain. Overall, these stories are fine, I guess, a nice change of pace. This one is about Dib participating in his dad's experiment to allow someone's emotions on the outside This experiment doesn't seem to work at first, and then his skeleton escapes his body, and then we just kind of see his skeleton wander off in his antics. We also see what Zim's plan is, but it's nothing really much, it's just average. It's okay for the most part. This one opens with Dib chasing Zim in space, and then Dib wakes up on a planet, someone named Plib. The planet is surrounded by a force field that makes it inhabitable, and Zim wanting to be the leader of it. The comic ends with the reveal that there's weapons in their vault, and Dib decides to try to stop Zim. Overall, it's okay. It's decent plot-wise. There's been worse, but it's alright. Zim is winning the support of Plib, with Dib not winning, and Zim's plan is to destroy the planet in order to destroy the force field. But what they don't realize is the force field was to hide from Zim's species, who then mistakes Dib for an invader. And it's found out that the weapons in the vault aren't actually weapons at all, at the end. Overall, I like this one, it's cool. It's nice to see like the more species that they have in the Invader Zim universe, and like who they're against. This one is about Dib's dad taking Dib and Gaz on a family trip, which on the trip, Dib suspects Zim of being onto him, and he discovers that he's luring skiers into a decoy waffle shop. They wrapped him up and shipped him to an alien retailer. Dib has beaten Zim and everyone's free, in which they just made the line longer, in which Gaz is annoyed by that. I thought this one was nice, a nice change of pace between the action ones and the related ones. This one is about Zim growing attached to this thing called a Little Meat Man, and then they're on a road trip, but then someone made him realize that he was just a wad of meat, then he feeds it to dolphins, and that's basically it. Overall, it was okay. It's a nice one, I guess. This comic is about Zim wondering why his plans always fail, and fears the tallest will be disappointed with him. He thinks an Urkin might replace him, so he decides to follow the signal. Meanwhile, Dib fears him meeting up with an Urkin is a team up to take over the world. So he tries to beat him to the signal, in which they enter a quadrangle in which there is a multiple Crash Voot runners, in which he is taken captive by one of the Urkins. And it's revealed that there is multiple copies of Zim, and that's how the issue ends. Overall, I like the setup for the plot leading into the next one. It really makes you want to like read the next one. This one is revealed all of the counterparts from different timelines. With Zim being mad, he has to work in the city sewers, but he changes when he learns that there's a hierarchy, which he quickly becomes mad how slow he's moving up, so he challenges the highest ranking one. It's then revealed that there's this muster-bound Zim called Invader Zim 100. Overall, it's overall an okay one, I guess. Zim tried to fight Invader Zim 100, but he got overpowered, and he only really won because of Dib getting involved. The comic ends with a reveal of a different version of Dib who was disguised as a first version of Invader Zim. Overall, I like this one. It makes sense. It makes sense for Zim wanting to fight the biggest ranked one, only to win by chance. So I will give a point for that. Overall, it's a good one. Another version of Dib explains why. That's because in his timeline he wasn't actually able to beat Zim and reverse technology, Urkin technology, in order to use this weapon he called Electrical Magical Pulse, the weapon that could destroy the technology he used and remove all Urkins from everything. This sounds like something else. Anyways, both of them get out of there and both of them claim that they're the best version of themselves. Zim claiming he's the ultimate Zim and Dib claiming he's the ultimate Dib. Overall, it's okay, not bad. This one is about a new student in Zim and Dib's class, and also thinks that Zim and Dib are the perfect friends. She wants them to be friends, and even at the end of the comics when shit hits the fan, and she still thinks that they could be friends even at the end of the comic when shit hits the fan and after the usual Dib and Zib antics. Overall, it's okay, fine. I was expecting a bit more from the final comic, but it's
I'm back again with more Invader Zim comics, so I can get the good ending. Let's go. This one is basically a Gur adventure, with Zim basically telling him to get this pokey thing. And as you expect, it doesn't go well, with Gur going to the moon and comes across this another group of aliens. Gur unleashes the darkness, and Gur randomly becomes a DJ and teaches everybody to dance instead of fight. And this one guy is pinning Zim down, and Gur just kisses him, and that's how it ends. Overall, it's okay, not bad. it's a girl adventure, so it's a W in my book. This one is about Dib using a contest to try to expose Zim for being an alien who got captured along with Gur. Also, Gur fucking dies. Just kidding, he comes back later. Zim escapes and then proving he's not an alien, and it turns out the guy hosting the contest is actually an alien. Overall, this one's fine, I guess. This is a holiday comic which has 3 different stories in it. One takes place right after the Christmas episode of Invader Zim. One of the other ones takes place with Zim waking up to find the ghost of Christmas past. Young Membrane getting socks for Christmas and why he hates Santa. These stories are fine, I guess. Overall, it's okay. Zim becomes mad he can't come up with any ideas to conquer Earth, and decides to get rid of all distractions by putting himself in a chamber. It just turns into Zim trying to find out what's up with this company called Zip, after their school starts using Zip. Anyways, Zip Corp promises that the green button will make his plan come true. And his plan was to destroy every balloon in the world. That was it. Overall, I guess it's okay, fine. This is the last fucking comic I can finally go to bed. Zim puts everything on a time loop. Basically, it's Groundhog Day, and basically Dib is trying to stop him. But the time keeps looping, and Dib can't do anything to stop the time loop, and that's basically it. It starts looping events that just happened. Overall, it's fine. In my opinion, the Invader Zim comics are just fine in my opinion. That's overall it. I hope you enjoyed this really long video, and bye.